Today's video is another one in my series on safeguarding, and as you know, it's important that every child is safeguarded. And so today I want to specifically address the safeguarding of what is known as the trans child. It's great to see that the public conversation has moved along to the point at which people are now actually asking questions of our institutions, of the government, of the Gender Identity Development Service, of all of the institutions that have failed us so badly. People are now asking the questions, why are we not safeguarding these children from these terrible, terrible harms that detransitioners are documenting for us every day? Today's video gives a little bit of background into how these children have been taken out of the safeguarding framework that we have and what we do about it. So the first thread we're going to look at is by someone who is called Read Some Piaget, Please. Now, this individual has written a fantastic thread which really explains how safeguarding has to apply to children who are labelled as dysphoric, and how the fact that it hasn't been regarded as preeminent in their treatment has been to lift them out of safeguarding and target them for abuse. I've just taken a couple of tweets out of the thread for us to look at together. The first tweet reads, "A thread about how trans/genderism/ideology is an attack on childhood itself. A key strategy has been the removal of protections and the promotion of an ideological construct, the trans child, to promote the idea that this ideology is a universal truth and not just a fetish." They continue, "Treating a gender dysphoric child in an evidence-based manner means centering the developmental stage of the child, otherwise the treatment is not age appropriate. Gender affirmative treatment alone sets aside this age-sensitive approach in favour of one driven by ideology. In this ideological approach, the child's sense of their own gender is deemed inherent and immutable. But there is no scientific evidence for this gendered soul. It is an imaginative device to create an easy, malleable social construct, the trans child. Importantly, the social construct known as the trans child must be called out every time it is uttered. The term is synonymous with the removal of safeguarding and the abuse of children. Those that use this word must be made aware that they are promoting child abuse." It's a fantastic thread, and the few tweets that I've picked out really don't give you a sense of the whole thing. I really do advise you to go and read the whole thing because it's excellent. And what he's talking about there, or she, is that there are very well established norms of child development that we can very accurately discern from observation in children and have been able to do so for decades. And we can infer from those observations that there are levels of development which have to be attained before subsequent levels can be attained. And all of this scaffolds to the development of human adulthood, our consciousness, our ability to think in abstract terms about what the right thing to do is in whatever situation, about our relationships and about our relationship to the state and to each other. So very, very important developmental steps. And what's happened with this particular group of children is that for some reason they have been removed from safeguarding because there has been this flawed understanding that this special group of children, unlike all of the other children throughout human history, this group of children, when they're playing pretend, which is a normal developmental stage that children go through, where they put on a princess dress and they are a princess, or they put on a fireman's helmet and they are a fireman. We don't send them off on a fire truck because there's an emergency and they're needed, they're short-staffed, they need extra bodies on the fire truck. No, because we safeguard that child. And we explain to that child that their job is to go and get some water from a tap and water some plants or something. That's a good fireman job for them to do, because we safeguard them from the consequences of their decision, which they couldn't possibly comprehend because of their developmental stage. You are not actually a fireman because you're wearing a fireman's helmet from a fancy dress shop. You are a child dressed as a fireman. In the same way, you are not actually a princess or a king or a queen, and you cannot actually order your mother to be decapitated as much as you might wish that in the moment. And therefore, we have this understanding that it's a game, but at the same time, we have this understanding that for the child during that game, it is real. It is real to them because they're at that stage where they believe that dressing as something means you are something. But in this particular instance, we have these children who are dressing in clothes that are stereotypically associated with the opposite sex, and then they're saying, I am a girl, or I am a boy. And the adults around them, rather than saying, yes, of course you are, dear, but it's time for tea, so let's take off the skirt or the fireman's helmet or the princess crown, stop threatening your brother or your sister with decapitation, or whatever it is that the game is over, we're going to have tea, and then later it's bath time and bedtime. So we appreciate the game, and we also call an end to the game, and we continue with normal life and make sure that they get what they need for their development, good food, appropriate rest, a loving environment. But for this one group of children, we've somehow decided that when they make declarative statements that they are a thing that they evidently are not, everybody around them will agree that they are actually that thing. They are actually a girl and not a boy. They are actually a boy and not a girl. This is incredibly poor safeguarding, and it's about time that we all woke up to it. Have you ever wondered why children with gender dysphoria somehow seem to bypass normal safeguarding practices? Why the term trans child is used by gender ideologists? Here is a thread that examines the concept that allows this process: the adultification of children. So what is adultification in the context of gender ideology? Perhaps the easiest way to understand it is to look at this article in the Daily Mail. Here you have a clothes designer selling clothes for transgender children. What the parent who buys this underwear for their children is doing is projecting their adult vision of transness onto their child. We thus have a working definition of gender adultification, the projection of patriarchal adult gender constructs onto children. This is mirrored by racist adultification, such as with child Q, where a child is perceived to be older than they are and as such is not treated with the care and protection that should be afforded to minors. Adults have projected their racist views onto child Q, so what we have with both racial and gender adultification is the removal of the protection of childhood. Child Q can be strip searched because she is deemed by the adults around her not to be a child as she is black. Through using this term, the child can be removed from the realm of child and can be subjected to adult procedures, just like child Q or the 4-year-old wearing a packer. Safeguarding or child development theory can be set aside as we are dealing not with a child but with a mini adult. The adultification of gender dysphoric children has allowed the trans child to become common terminology, and because the trans child is no longer deemed a child but a mini trans adult, they can be excluded from normal processes of child safeguarding. Once again, this incredible thread I've only taken a few tweets here and there to talk about, but really to get the full context, there's nothing better than going and reading the whole thing for yourself. There are plenty of links within it that you could follow up at your leisure. This thread is about the actual mechanism. We need to name the problem, that elementary feminist principle. And this tweeter identifies the problem as adultification. So instead of seeing... You see, it was such a great breakthrough when the Victorians suddenly realised that children were not just mini adults, and the Edwardians decided that they should actually start to appreciate the different stages of childhood as different to just being a smaller adult person. And this has informed all of child development, all of every medical and social care type profession that has dealt with people across the lifespan for the past 100 years has been based around the principles that, there is this specific process of child development. But as the tweeter points out, there are other groups who are marginalised who have also been lifted out of safeguarding, and he refers to the case of Child Q that we did actually look at in some depth, and how racist adultification, that is when we ascribe adult motives, adult responsibility onto black children because of racist prejudice that we may hold, that lifts them out of safeguarding and makes them vulnerable to abuses that they should be safeguarded against. And in the same way, there are children that are now being lifted out by a gender adultification into this status as a trans child, a miniature trans adult that should be exempted from the normal rules of safeguarding. And this is dangerous. This exposes these children to abuse. It's absolutely vital that we go back to first principles, that we look at child development, and we assert that there is no such thing as a trans child. There is no such thing as a trans child. There is no gender, so there is no gender dysphoria. What we have is a lot of distressed children who have very real distress, and they are distressed for a multitude of different reasons, some of which can probably be solved by adjusting their environment, some of which can be solved through some kind of therapy, and some of which, are intractable social problems that we all must change together. But these children do not have a secret gender. There is no such thing. I'm sorry to all of the people who have taken this on board. I used to believe that there might be some people that had this secret idea of gender that maybe I just was missing, but in actual fact, no, that's not true. The truth is, there is no secret thing called gender identity. There is no gendered soul hiding in the middle of us. There are our bodies, and our bodies create our consciousness. And we can't be making it okay for people to go around chopping their bodies up and expecting that it's fine because they can just Lego some different genitals in place. No, you mess with your bodily integrity, at huge, great risk. So it's really important that we call out this construct of the trans child, the gender dysphoric child, when we see it. So I'm going to show you a conversation which went on Twitter where we discussed this imaginary social construct of the trans child and how there is no such thing. And Georgia X Cross was in the conversation, Leaky Like was in the conversation, and I checked in at the end.
No, there are children who are distressed. The causative factors are unknown. You are replicating unhelpful language by categorizing a cohort of children that suggests homogeneity and force teaming with men with paraphilias who embrace the same euphemistic descriptor. Please reflect. Yes, the thread is about not taking adult ideology and projecting it onto children. There is no difference in saying children are trans or gender dysphoric. It's the same thing. It seeds the very ideological assumption that the thread objects to. A child in need is a child who is thought to need extra support or services to help them to achieve or maintain a reasonable standard of health or development. We have the language within children's safeguarding. The quoted thread is about not taking children outside of that. Not persuaded that gender dysphoric children is an accurate descriptor either. It's a catch-all term and does very little to help children who need differential diagnosis to illuminate their distress. Its only real use is in cementing an adult ideology in people's minds. Yes, distressed children is sufficient. There is no such thing as gender identity, and we must be careful with framing these statements so that we do not concede contested ground.
So there are, of course, many things that we must take regard of when we are safeguarding children, but the absolutely foundational point that I wanted to get across in this video is that every child matters, which is such an important term. We actually named a whole policy after it. Every child matters. Every child deserves to be safeguarded. We must apply the same safeguarding principles in every situation and with every child. That includes children who have been labelled gender dysphoric, who have been labelled trans, children who believe in their heart of hearts that they are girls when they are in fact boys, or vice versa. All of these children deserve safeguarding, and sometimes, it's difficult to do that because sometimes safeguarding has to be a partnership process with the parents, and sometimes that's really difficult because of attitudes, prejudices or views that parents have, and that's where the state sometimes has to step in and help to facilitate a safeguarding intervention to protect those children. So where a child and a parent have views which make safeguarding difficult, there are professionals who are tasked with coming in and helping to facilitate a safeguarding principle. And we've gone over that in some of the previous safeguarding videos about making safeguarding referrals when there are low-level concerns, making safeguarding referrals when there are, immediate concerns. Essentially, what I'm saying is that there should be lots of stress points where safeguarding experts can be introduced into a situation to help sort it out. And the problem has been that those stress points have failed, and the people who are intervening at various different points are not doing so according to the safeguarding principles that we're talking about, that every child deserves the same opportunity to thrive. Every child deserves to get to adulthood with their genitalia intact. Every child deserves to be healthy and strong and whole in their genitals so that when they become an adult, they will be able to pursue sexual relationships, perhaps reproduce at some point in the future. We do not have the right to remove that facility from children. They are not able to consent to this. So, along with everybody else in the country, I am waiting for the final review from Hilary Cass, and I am hoping for a lot from it. I am hoping that we can pull this whole thing back into some kind of order, and hopefully we can make sure that every single child is safeguarded. So thanks for watching the video today. I really appreciate you sticking with it. I think I will do some more content about child development just to make clear to people what the stages of development that these people are talking about actually are, and how we know about it maybe. If that's something you're interested in, let me know. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I've enjoyed hanging out with you. If you would like to subscribe to the channel, that would be great. If you're a new subscriber, welcome. If you would like to smash the like or the dislike buttons, that's fantastic. And if you want to leave a comment, let's have a conversation about anything that I've talked about in the video. So take care. I'll see you again soon.